Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing what I believe to be the best team in the entire Master League. This team is so incredible that I went 14 wins and 1 loss across my last 15 games with it to climb up to 2853 ELA, where I promptly couldn't find any opponents, as it was within the top 20 ranked battlers in the entire world. This team is hyper flexible. Even when facing down a team that should triple hard counter it, this team can just consistently find ways to win. The team features Xerneas lead with Reshiram and Zekrom in the back. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1 we pick up a disastrous lead Xerneas into Duskmane Necrozma. But I have 2 pretty solid answers in the back, so I save switch into Zekrom, and out comes Dialga. Zekrom in this meta absolutely has to run Outrage. Crunch, while it does give you pressure into Lunala, as a save switch, you need your Zekrom to be able to guarantee switch advantage or shield advantage, and that's exactly what the combination of Fusion Bolt plus Outrage can give you. My opponent here unfortunately survives with 1 HP remaining to make a second Iron Head, meaning that I will be able to win switch, but unfortunately, I exit very low. My opponent brings back in the Duskmane. This is going to be a tricky game if they end up no shielding. However, my opponent's going to invest in the HP of the Duskmane, and now I'm in a very good spot, because a Fusion Flare from Reshiram is going to do way more damage than a Fusion Bolt from Zekrom ever would have. I have to respect the potential Outrage. They bait with the Iron Head, they farm up, in the back is Palkia, and I bank a few extra Dragon Breaths before I send in the Xerneas. This endgame is going to be a very close one. It's going to come down to if I'm able to make double Fusion Flare before my opponent is able to make it to the Outrage. I'm going to need to be very careful to ensure that when I take this knockout onto the Palkia, that they get as little farm as possible on the Duskmane. So I will go for an undercharge on the close combat, take the knockout, that's going to burn most of the switch timer, and now I can close combat, they're only going to get 1 Shadow Claw, and I can immediately pivot into the Reshiram. And I'm already at the back-to-back Fusion Flares, and because we did not let them get a bunch of extra energy, that's going to win us this game. Technically, my opponent had a pretty positive matchup into my team across the board. However, it just did not matter, as this team just finds a way to win games. Hopping into game number 2, picking up another bad lead Xerneas into Zacian. I save switch into Zekrom, out comes Dialga, and these ABA Steel teams are in large part trying to counter this team, because this team is just so incredibly strong. But I'm able to grab an early shield advantage here as I fire off the Outrage, and that's going to work out very nicely for me. All I really want out of this matchup is shield advantage. They go for the Iron Head. I will make a last second Fusion Bolt. This will not knock out, but it will put my opponent pretty low. And to my surprise, my opponent miscounted, and they end up giving me both shields. I would have been pretty happy with having a 1 shield advantage. Having a 2 shield advantage is even better. They're going to make double Iron Head before I'm able to make my close combat, so I will have to give a shield back. However, a shield advantage Reshiram running Draco Meteor can basically beat anything in the meta. So I will look to farm up, do just shy of the back-to-back close combats before taking the knockout, and then it's all going to be up to Reshiram. In comes Zacian. I fire off the close combat just to ensure that they will be in Fusion Flare range. And now, let's go Reshiram. In comes Reshiram. Zacian going to be staying in to fire off the close combat. I don't know what they have in the back, so I will invest in my HP. Close combat will be shielded. In the back is Tyranitar, and if I had any coverage move other than Draco Meteor, I lose this game. However, my Reshiram is running the big damage. Draco Meteor sets up the farm down. Back in comes the Zacian. My attack has been double debuffed, but Reshiram is just a monster. It's not going to matter. Fusion Flare knocks out the Zacian, and despite being triple hard countered, we win once again. We get a very good lead for a change in game number 3, leading Xerneas into Marshadow. My opponent save switches into Reshiram, and I feel very comfortable playing out this matchup as the Xerneas. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back close combats, and then, anticipating that they try and CMP time me here, I'm going to go for a catch of the Fusion Flare onto my own Reshiram. My opponent actually reads the play and goes for a Crunch, which is a pretty nice play on their part, and here I do make a bit of a mistake. I should not shield here. Crunch is really not going to do a lot of damage, and my opponent gets a Crunch debuff as well. That's a very poor shield on my end, because realistically, I could have just no-shielded and I still would have been able to make a Fusion Flare, but I really feel like I kind of wasted the first shield of the match for no reason. Crunch will take the knockout. I'm going to bring back in the Xerneas because Xerneas energy is just always useful. Now I have a loaded Xerneas, and my opponent is going to reveal their final Pokemon as Kyogre. Kyogre will take some pretty monster damage from Moonblast. I'm going to farm up, wait the turn to ensure they don't get a catch onto Marshadow, and go for the close combat. Now, I either take the knockout or I guarantee that final shield, and once their Kyogre is gone, Zekrom is going to be able to close out the game in the 1s versus Marshadow. Marshadow lands the Ice Punch, but they would need a 2-shield scenario to be able to Shadow Claw down. In the ones, I can just tank one, shield one, build up to the back-to-back Fusion Bolts, and get the win. My opponent will fire off the last-second Ice Punch, playing it out to the bitter end, but unfortunately, there is just no path forward in this game. Zekrom makes the Fusion Bolt, and this will easily be enough damage to secure the knockout. Down goes Marshadow, and that's another win. We move to the next match, picking up a perfect mirror lead, Xerneas against Xerneas. Now, this opponent is not running Best Buddy Boost equipped on their Xerneas, and I do run it, which is really nice for me because that means I'm always going to be winning charge stack priority and therefore winning the lead. My backline doesn't have any fast move pressure into Xerneas. I do think that losing the lead matchup can be okay because you can go for like a 1-shield farm down with Reshiram, but ideally, I would love to just take the knockout, and then no matter what they send in, I'm just going to be pivoting and sending in the Reshiram. My opponent brings in their own Reshiram, so I am going to be down 1 turn. My opponent fires off energy. This can only be a crunch, and crunch is not really something that I have to worry about. I can take this move and always make the Draco. My opponent does get the crunch debuff, which means suddenly I'm taking quite a bit more damage. Draco does get shielded. My opponent pivots, sending in Shadow Ho-Oh, and what a smart play. They're able to snipe me down and get a 40 energy head start. Zekrom has a dominant matchup into Ho-Oh, but down this much energy, this could get uncomfortable. Even a resistant Sacred Fire from a Shadow Ho will hit for incredible damage, and I do get debuffed as well. I farm up, switch it to the Xerneas, and that's the reason I saved it from earlier, in case I needed it for a catch. We catch the Brave Bird. Now I'm just going to farm up, make sure that I'm at 100 energy, because I need to exit with as much residual energy as possible to outpace that Reshiram. Back in comes the Reshiram. I fire off the Fusion Bolt as they make the Fusion Flare, and I will have enough energy to win this game. Crunch gets shielded. They do not get the debuff this time, but even if they did, I just strictly outpaced with the Zekrom. They've taken too much damage throughout the course of this game that even a resisted Fusion Bolt will be able to knock them out and secure the win. That play to send in the Ho-Oh was a terrific play for my opponent, but luckily, we get the catch, and that ended up being game-winning. We pick up a bad lead in the next match, leading Xerneas into Lunala. I'm going to save switch into Reshiram and bluff like I have Crunch, but my opponent ends up catching my Fusion Flare onto their own Reshiram. Oh my goodness, I was so locked in on firing off the Fusion Flare instantly to outpace their Shadow Ball that I was not paying attention to the fact that they switched into the Reshiram. What a great catch from my opponent. However, my Reshiram is able to make a last-second Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor is super effective, it takes the knockout, and just like that, I've won switch. However, switch advantage doesn't really help me against a Lunala that has a ton of energy, so I actually just blind pivot back into the Xerneas. Lunala will be able to inflict devastating damage with Shadow Ball, but the good news for me is that that does not one-shot. I try for the Moonblast, they're already at Shadow Ball number 2, and Lunala is incredibly strong in neutral matchups. I decide to put up a shield because I'm pretty confident that I can get a shield back. If my opponent's staying in, they don't have a strong answer to the Xerneas, and the threat of a second Moonblast should pressure away all of their energy. Now I can just send in Zekrom and look for a 1-shield farm down, and I still have a catch available on the Reshiram in case I need it. So I'm just going to keep farming. They reveal their final Pokemon in the back is going to be Zekrom, so they're running a very similar team. I full send the Outrage, they put up the shield, and that is really not ideal. I'm now in a spot where I need the catch to win this game. I have to respect the potential Outrage, they're on Crunch, and this is going to be a tricky game. I farm up, switch into the Reshiram, and get the game-winning catch, or at least I hope it's the game-winning catch. I'm going to need to double up here on Fusion Bolts, but I'm very, very low. Can a Fusion Bolt plus a couple Dragon Breath take the knockout? Will I get farmed down first? It comes down to the wire, but I farm down on 1 HP, exit with the Fusion Bolt, and even with that terrible play in the early game where I let a Fusion Flare get caught under Reshiram, we claw our way back, and our winning ways continue. We've got a Xerneas Mirror in the next match once again, but this trainer does have the Best Buddy Boost equipped, so it's going to be a perfect coin flip. I fire off the Moonblast, winning the coin flip charge stack priority tie, and that's quite nice. Moonblast lands, I get an attack drop. Now this is a very rare occurrence. I don't think I've ever gotten a Moonblast attack drop in the Xerneas Mirror before, but because I also won charge stack priority, their Moonblast basically did no damage to me. So now I can just shield once, fully farm down, because if there's a Xerneas lead, nothing in the back is going to want to see Xerneas energy. My opponent sends in Kyurem, I have back-to-back close combats. I decide to save this energy, and I'm just going to pivot into Reshiram. Reshiram will be able to outpace and make the Fusion Flare before their Ice Burn, and even if they end up no shielding, I feel pretty comfortable just letting the Reshiram go. I'm trusting in the fact that Zekrom plus a loaded close combat on Xerneas will beat whatever they have in the back, and it will as they have their own Zekrom. I send in Xerneas, fire off the close combat, and immediately realize that I have messed up. I should have waited my switch timer because then I could have close combated and switched. And now, because I didn't wait my switch timer, I had to throw a couple Geomancies and I gave them a really big energy head start. Luckily, I'm able to get the shield call right on the outrage, so it's not going to matter. But that was pretty sloppy gameplay for me. My outrage is easily going to be taking the knockout, and we're going to get the win anyway, but even so, I definitely should have been more patient there. We move to the next game, leading Xerneas into Goldengo. Goldengo, it has an incredible typing for the Master League, but unfortunately, its stats are pretty terrible. My opponent banks energy on Goldengo, sends in Primarina, and my opponent's team so far has a theme. The theme is Pokemon with cool typings that have absolutely no stats to speak of. Even though Reshiram has entirely resisted damage, Reshiram can just pretty consistently win switch against Primarina. The double resisted Dragon Breath add up, my single resisted Fusion Flare at this point will probably just secure the knockout, so I fire off the Fusion Flare, down goes Primarina, and my opponent sends in Zekrom. This is great, I either get my shield back or they lose Zekrom. They no-shield, Draco Meteor takes the one-hit KO, and now it's a Zekrom versus Goldengo endgame. Zekrom fires off energy first, going for the Fusion Bolt. Even my resisted Dragon Breaths do so much damage to Goldengo. I do absolutely love Goldengo. I think it's an amazing Pokemon in the Master League Premier Cup, but in Open Masters, Goldengo is a very tough Pokemon to use because its stats just don't really hold up compared to the legendaries. At this point, my opponent knows there's no path forward, they no-shield the Fusion Bolt, and we take the win. We get the worst case scenario lead in the next match, leading Xerneas into Groudon. One of the reasons why I featured Groudon earlier on in the season and was so complimentary of it is the fact that Groudon is so insanely strong into the best Pokemon in this meta. And in my eyes, the best Pokemon in this meta are the three Pokemon that I have on this team, Xerneas, Reshiram, and Zekrom. I fire off close combat, dealing solid damage onto the Groudon, and now I'm going to send in Reshiram. I have to respect the potential Precipice Blades. My opponent is going to bait with the Fire Punch, and then they bring in their own Reshiram. I farm up to the Draco Meteor, going for the bait. With this energy head start, I'm assuming they will have to respect it, and they don't. And this is when I learned, you always click Draco Meteor. So many Reshiram run crunch that you can get away with landing Draco Meteor after Draco Meteor and be fine. If I land that Draco Meteor, I'm in such a convincing spot, but unfortunately, I baited, my opponent called it, and now I'm probably in a lot of trouble. I'm looking to pivot into the Zekrom. In the back is Dialga, and unfortunately, that bait into a no-shield just cost me everything, and I will resign the match. We pick up a positive lead in the next match, Xerneas into Reshiram. Now, Xerneas does win the Zero Shield scenario, but you can't throw Moonblast. If you throw Moonblast, the Geomancies don't do enough, and Reshiram makes a second Fusion Flare. You win the Zeros by going for double close combat. My opponent, they actually make a very nice catch as they end up catching the close combat onto Kyogre, and they do sneak through a waterfall. In comes Zekrom. Zekrom, unfortunately, not a big fan of Avalanches. Avalanche is going to hit for a ton of damage, so I will put up a shield. The reason why I feel very safe in putting up a shield here is I know that I can always guarantee that my Zekrom is going to stay very healthy. If they shield here, I can just double shield and then farm them down, and my opponent knows it. So they end up letting it go. They send in Xerneas, and I just have so much energy on this Zekrom. Zekrom's ability to two-shot all of the fairies in the meta is part of the reason why it is such an incredibly strong Mon. And in this moment, I realize I have a guaranteed win condition in this game. Switch Xerneas and click close combat. Even if my opponent catches, they don't have a counterplay. And if they stay in, they lose charge type priority because their Xerneas did not have Best Buddy boost equipped. So doing that play basically covered for no matter what my opponent would want to do. They end up undercharging and sniping with the Reshiram, but I have a Reshiram and a shield, and I still have a decent amount of Zekrom as well. So now I can just bring in my own Reshiram. Switch timer's not up, so I won't be able to go for a catch or anything like that, but I should be able to Dragon Breath them into a range where even a Fusion Flare will secure the KO. So I farm up quite a bit. I end up losing charge stack priority, but my opponent has revealed they only have Crunch, and Crunch just really does not do a lot in the mirror. So now I get to return fire with a move that'll do even less in the mirror, Fusion Flare. They survive, they pivot Xerneas, but the reason that I overfarmed and threw when I did was to ensure I would have enough residual energy to outpace the Xerneas. So we outpace the Xerneas, take the knockout, farm down the opposing Reshiram, and get the win. Hopping into the final match, and what do you know? Xerneas into Reshiram. Playing in the Master League, you should see a lot of Xerneas, Reshiram, and Zekrom because they're kind of just the best Pokemon. My opponent will fire off energy right before I get the close combat. Typically, in the Reshiram matchup, I assume that they're very likely to catch the second close combat onto a Lunala. That would be pretty catastrophic, so I usually just close combat and then pivot into my own Reshiram. My opponent is going to respond with Kyogre. Now, Kyogre probably assumes that they can safely survive a Crunch because most Reshirams are on Crunch. This Kyogre is actually on Surf, not Avalanche, but I'm going to farm up to 100, I accidentally go a bit over 100, and just full send the Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor lands, down goes Kyogre, in comes Zacian, and now Zacian is getting hit with the -2 Fusion Flare. This Fusion Flare is going to do quite a lot of damage, and now I can just pivot into the Zekrom. Because this is an endgame scenario, I will be shielding up the close combat because it's just going to force my opponent to pivot out. But this Zacian is actually on what I would consider to be a pretty bad moveset there on Play Rough. Play Rough, in my eyes, really doesn't do a lot for Zacian outside of surprise one-shots. It makes the Pokemon's overall consistency substantially worse. So you're kind of making your Pokemon worse in exchange for the potential of a surprise one-shot. In this moment, I see a guaranteed win condition, and that's going for the CMP Sack Swap. If my opponent ends up undercharging, which they do, I CMP Tide. I have a close combat. And if they full charge it, then they just don't have any energy, and then I can knock them out with the Zekrom. Back in comes Reshiram. Reshiram does get a big farm down, but I still have a very healthy Zekrom and a shield, and I can even bring in my Reshiram, which had slightly more HP than theirs, to force their energy. They show they have Draco Meteor. In comes Zekrom. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. All in all, I feel like today I've made a pretty compelling case that this is the best team that you can run currently in the Open Master League. Even against teams that should, in theory, triple RPS it, this team can find a way to get win cons. And that's just due to the fact that Zekrom and Reshiram are just so absurdly flexible with even the tiniest amount of energy advantage. So consistently trying to play for energy advantage on either Reshiram or Zekrom is consistently a winning strategy. Now, I know my moveset choices on Zekrom and Reshiram may be a little bit controversial. There's a lot of Crunch Reshiram and Crunch Zekrom going around. But personally, I just can't ever justify not running the insanely efficient same type attack bonus nuke that allows you to pressure shields or guarantee massive damage onto opposing dragons for a better matchup into Lunala, which is a pretty fine matchup for Reshiram and Zekrom, even without Crunch. So for me personally, these movesets fit my playstyle a lot better. You can obviously run whatever movesets you would prefer, but in my eyes, I think these are probably the best movesets for this team, just because there were quite a few games where Draco Meteor on Reshiram kept landing, and even if you don't end up landing it, the ability to pressure a shield advantage with Outrage or Draco Meteor can set up the other dragon with a shield advantage to then sweep in the endgame. So I love the synergy this team has. It's a rare team where I feel like every time I lead into a Zacian, I do end up winning, just because the vast majority of the time, every Zacian team is core broken to smithereens by Zekrom. I do have some important notes about the Zacian lead. Into a Zacian lead, you always want to safe switch the Zekrom, and you never want to throw your Fusion Bolt at the Zacian. Zacian will almost always stay for a while, close combat, and then pivot, and they almost always pivot into a dragon. The play pattern works out far better if you tank the close combat and don't throw the Fusion Bolt onto the Zacian, because the Fusion Bolt onto the Zacian is largely irrelevant damage considering endgame you're trying to knock it out with a Fusion Flare, and a Fusion Flare already does a ton of damage. So instead, you're better holding the energy, taking the close combat, and then when they pivot into Dragon, using Outrage to pick up the one-hit knockout or to force the shield advantage that will set up the Reshiram to sweep in the endgame. So with that tip in mind, I basically never lost any Zacian leads with this team, even though Zacian is obviously an amazing lead for my opponent in Xerneas, but that's just because with the correct play patterns, Reshiram and Zekrom are just absolutely insane. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a like on the video, drop a comment, let me know what teams you're running in the Master League, and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much, and until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.